I want to take you back to a drive home. It was after a counseling session. My wife had just cried in that room, and I sat there defending myself the entire time. I was explaining myself, telling her nothing happened. I was telling her she was wrong for feeling the way that she felt. And I'll be honest, I drove away, and I couldn't shake it though. I couldn't shake the sound of her voice. It was the pain that was inside of it. I couldn't shake the image of her sitting there trying to explain something to this man who wasn't really listening. And I kept thinking, I thought about it for days, for weeks. Weeks turned into months. And that was the moment that made me move. Not a plan, not a program, and not a decision that I made sitting in a quiet room somewhere. Just that sound. And the question I kept asking myself on that drive, if I don't change right now, what am I actually doing this for? What's going on, YouTube family, and welcome back to the channel. So we've been on this journey together over the last few videos, and I'd say over the last few weeks I've talked a lot about being a high performer at work and a low performer in my marriage. I've talked about the questions that really exposed me, and I've talked about what my son TJ saw during the hardest season of my life and what I would call his life as well. And if you've been watching, you probably are starting to have questions for me by now. And one of those questions may be, what did actually changing look like? Not the decision though, not the motivation or the motivation factors, but the actual thing. What did day one look like? What did I actually do? And what happened when I actually did it? Today, that's what this video is all about. Because I think, and I'm saying I think that a lot of men want to change and need to change, but they don't know how. And they don't know what the starting point actually feels like. And if I'm being honest, nobody wants to be transparent or honest. Men, they typically want to keep up this shield and keep this persona up without letting their guards down. But on today, we're going to remove the guards and we're just going to be transparent. All right. So I've mentioned the counseling sessions before. And one counseling session in particular is the one where my wife was crying in the session. I was sitting there defending myself the entire time. But what I haven't talked about is what happened after I really walked out of that room. I got in my car, right? Because me and my wife had drove in separate cars. I got in my car and I just sat there for a minute. Just in silence. Because something about hearing the pain, really hearing it, not just waiting for my turn to talk, but something about all the pain and the brokenness, there was a breakthrough in me. And it was something that I had never felt before. And then I finally drove home and I kept thinking about it, not just that night, but for weeks. I'd be at work and that moment would come back to me. I'd be in the gym and I'd start thinking about and start hearing her voice in that room. I'd literally be laying in the bed at night and I'd replay the whole session. And finally, I'd hear the things that I was too defensive to hear when she was actually saying them. And somewhere in all of that replaying, I started to see myself clearly. Not the version of myself that I'd been protecting. Not the version that was trying hard and carrying pressure and didn't know that they were basically doing their best. But the real version. The one who was making his wife feel alone in the marriage. The one who was so focused on not being wrong that he kept choosing being right over being connected. And that's the moment I made the decision. Not a drastic one, but a decision. Not some big moment. It was not this spectacular moment where I sat down and wrote out a plan. I just decided that I was going to stop doing things the way I had been doing them, and I was going to start doing things differently. Simple things, real things. And I was going to start the very next day. I was going to listen more. And I mean actually listen. And I wasn't going to respond, but I was just going to listen. I was going to be more encouraging, more supportive. I was going to tell her that I love her, not assume that she knows that, but actually say it. I was going to start communicating and bringing her into my world instead of shutting her out of it. That was it. It was no big strategy. Did you think it was going to be something else? It was just those things. And that's what I started to do. And I want to tell you this. What it actually looked like, because I think when men think about change, they picture some dramatic transformation, like some spectacular moment, some moment where everything shifts, but that's not what it looked like for me. Day one looked like basically telling my wife I love her when I normally would have just walked past her or would have just told her good night. It looked like asking her how was she doing. When things actually was going wrong with me, I would still ask her how's she doing. And then I'd actually wait for an answer instead of moving on to the next thing. It looked like sitting down and having a conversation instead of going straight to my phone or the TV after a long day. It looked like noticing when she seemed stressed and asking what's going on, but not trying to fix it, just asking. Small things. To anybody watching from the outside, it probably didn't even look like much. But here's the thing nobody tells you about changing small little things. They're actually not small. Because for me, those things have been missing for a long time. And doing them consistently, like every day, without making a big announcement about it, that was actually hard. It was hard because it required me to be present when I was used to being in my own head. It required me to slow down when I used to basically just move fast. It required me to put her needs in front of my own in the small moments, not just the big ones. And here's the part that made it even harder. She didn't automatically respond the way I wanted her to, or I hoped she would. But I had to keep going anyways. Let me say something right here that I wish somebody had said to me before I started. When you start changing, don't do it expecting a receipt. Don't do it expecting a certain outcome. Because if you're changing your behavior, waiting for her to respond a certain way, you're not really changing. All you're doing is negotiating. And I'll tell you this, her, because women are different. They can feel the difference. So here's what I had to learn the hard way. My wife, she had seen me try before. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't the first time that things got hard and I said I was going to do better. This wasn't the first time that I had actually left the house. This wasn't the first time that I moved back and I promised things would be different. So when I started showing up differently, telling her that I actually love her and listening better and communicating more, she started to notice. But she was still guarded. She was guarded about a lot of it. Some things she responded to. Others she held back because she had been hurt by me before, because she heard it before. Because trust, it doesn't come back just because behaviors change. Trust, it comes back because behaviors change consistently over time without the man giving up when he doesn't get the response that he's hoping for. And that was the hardest part for me. The hardest part wasn't changing the behavior. It was changing the behavior without expecting something back. Because let's be honest, I'm a man who's wired to see results, right? I work hard. I expect to see results. I expect to see progress. I put in effort. I expect to see a return, right? You expect to see a return on your investment. That's how I operate everywhere else in my life. But marriage doesn't work like that. And healing differently and healing definitely, it doesn't work like that. There were moments early on where I tell her I love her and she just say it back quietly, not with the warmth that I was hoping for. And the part of me wanted to go off, all right? I was frustrated because at that time, I still wasn't fully changing. And I'm trying and nothing's changing. But I had to sit with something uncomfortable. The reason she was guarded was because of me. I had created this guardedness in her. My inconsistencies, my selfishness, my shutting her out of all the decisions, my moving out time after time, the things I said and didn't say over the years, I had built a wall in her. And now I'm frustrated that that wall is there. I'm upset, but that's not fair. You can't spend all these years doing damage and then expect it to be undone in a week because you start saying, I love you. You can't. So I had to make a decision. Am I saying this and doing all of this because I want her to respond differently? Or am I doing this because it's the right thing to do regardless? And once I answered that, it changed everything. Because when you stop doing the right thing, waiting for a reward, you actually start doing the right thing. And that's the moment when change really begins. So what kept me going when it wasn't working yet? When she was still guarded? When I couldn't tell if things was landing home for her? A few things. First, I kept going back to that counseling session in my mind. I kept going back to her voice because whenever I felt like stopping, I'd remind myself of what I was stopping for. And I'd ask myself, is the discomfort of staying consistent worse than going back to what it was? The answer was always no. Second, I started doing it for me, not just for her. Not in a selfish way, though. But I started realizing that the man I was becoming through this process, it was what I needed. I was more patient, more present, more honest, more humble. That was the man I actually wanted to be, regardless of what happened in the marriage. Third, I kept thinking about TJ. I kept thinking about what he was going to see, because I already seen what the hard season looked like through his eyes. And I'll tell you, I wasn't going back there. I wasn't going back there because I didn't want my son to have that question or to have to ask that question to me again. So I kept going. And I always say this, it wasn't perfect. There were days I slipped back into old habits. Days I got defensive when I should have listened. Days I went quiet when I should have communicated. But I kept coming back to it. And slowly, not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly, things started to shift. She started responding a little more. She started opening up a little more. The guardedness, it started to soften. It started to soften in a lot of places. And now I can say we're in this place where I honestly wasn't sure we'd get to. We've been building together. We've been making decisions together. We're talking about our future, not separately, but actually together. Her writing, my channel, our businesses, our kids, our life, our friends, all of it. We do it and we talk about it together. And that didn't happen because I had the right strategy. It didn't. It happened because I stopped quitting. I stopped quitting when it got uncomfortable. So, if you're watching this and you know you need to start, here's what I want you to hear. You don't need a plan. You need a decision. Start with one thing. All right? Tell your wife, tell the love of your life that you love her today and actually mean it. Ask her how she's doing and actually wait for the answer. Have the conversation that you've been avoiding for months, probably for 3 months. Just start there. And when you do, don't start with expectations. Don't start keeping score. Make sure you don't calculate whether she's responding the way that you need her to respond. Just do the right thing. Be consistent and do it without quitting. Because here's what I know about the man watching this. You already know, you already truly know what you need to do. You've probably known this for a while. And the question was never really what. The question was whether you were going to stop waiting, if you were going to stop waiting for the right moment, and when were you just going to do it. There is no right moment. There's not no fairy tale moment. There's just this moment, like right now. And your wife, she doesn't need you to be perfect. She doesn't need you to have your hair cut. She doesn't need you to have everything together. She just needs you to be consistent. Your kids, they don't need you to have it all figured out for them. They need you to keep showing up. One step after time. One foot in front of the next foot. And that man, the one who keeps showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's not working yet, even when he's not getting the response he hoped for, that man, that's the man that your family has been waiting for. So I'll tell you, or I want to tell you, go be him. Go be him starting today. So, if this hit home for you, drop day one. Drop it in the comments. Because I honestly want to know, what's the one thing that you're going to do differently starting today? If you're going to start listening, drop it in the comments. If you're going to tell her that you love her, drop it in the comments. If you're going to show up and be present, drop it in the comments. Say it out loud, because saying it makes it real. And if you've been watching this whole series and it's been speaking to you and you've been showing up, share it with somebody who needs it. Because there's a man somewhere watching, or that should be watching. All right? Somebody needs to hear this before it's too late. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And until the next time, later.